When I started residency, I met some producers and filmmakers, and I happened to play in some movies in Germany.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beauty in the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's special guest is Dr. Sheila Kassir. She's a board-certified plastic surgeon from Germany and an internationally recognized beauty expert on novel and trusted cosmetic procedures, including the latest beauty trends and innovations from Europe. Now, she began her career as a German film and TV actress, then traveled the world to complete her plastic and reconstructive surgery training at Yale and in Ghana, Barbados, Germany, Switzerland, and Iran, and then eventually returned to the US, where she trained with Dr. Rampton Kassir, a celebrity facial plastic surgeon on Park Avenue in New York City. So Dr. Kassir has since founded the Inside Beauty Spa on Park Avenue and the Inside Beauty skincare line. Now, her patients know her as Dr. Sheila, and they love her surgical and non-surgical techniques, skincare solutions, and post-surgical protocols for rapid recovery. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Kassir in New York last month while speaking at an incredible event she helped orchestrate with her husband called Facelift and Rhinoplasty Master Course. That was absolutely unbelievable. I will say that was one of the best conferences I've ever attended for a variety of reasons. So Dr. Sheila, welcome to Beauty in the Biz podcast.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you so much for having me. And this introduction was just so flattering. Thank you.
I just don't see, you have been a busy, busy lady. So first of all, I love the actress angle. I did not know that. Can you just tell us briefly what that was about and how, well, is it as fun as it looks or no?
It's funny that you even know that. I'm like, oh my God, she knows so much about me. Yeah, so the actress thing was just, I always loved medicine, and my other passion was acting. It was kind of my getaway, my meditation, where you go into a different role. And when I started residency, I met some producers and filmmakers, and I happened to play in some movies in Germany. And it worked out. Even my chairman back then at a university hospital, very conservative in Munich, Germany, he was the best. He said, you know what, as long as you do your job as you do, I think it's great. You don't only work here as a resident, you're also an actress, so go for it. Don't worry what people say. And I thought that was very, very advanced at that time. So that encouraged me to continue that.
Has the acting helped you in your second career as the plastic surgeon?
I would say now it does, because through acting, obviously, I got to know many people from that world, from the showbiz. You understand their needs, you understand what drives them, and you understand what's really important for them. And when they later see you and visit you as a plastic surgeon, you really know what's important, and you kind of feel the temperature in the room when an actress or an actor needs something or comes to you, you just get it.
Nice. So how in the world did you get from Germany to Park Avenue in New York City?
So I always love to travel, and I also always love to combine traveling for pleasure and work and to learn. And especially in plastic surgery, I feel like it's so hard during residency only to learn all the things you want to learn. You really have to go and see role model surgeons and to learn from them. And then also the other aspect of traveling, you see the different influences of beauty worldwide. So what I did during residency was traveling a lot when I could and going to see doctors. And in I think it was my last year of residency, I went to a conference. I was working in Switzerland and went to a conference in Iran to learn more about facelifts and facial plastic surgery. And Dr. Ramtin Kassir was speaking there in the audience and presenting facelift surgery. And I'm like, I want to learn that. So then I went there to shadow with my best friend, also a facial plastic surgeon. And she said, let's go, let's learn from him, let's shadow. And we went there and we just were blown away of what we were able to learn within like weeks. And later on, I came back also because I have lots of family in the US, and I just started to work there and learn more. And I ended up staying in New York.
Wow, that's amazing. So can you describe your practice because you have a lot going on over there?
Yes, it's like a hamster wheel, but we love it and we can't let go. And we just continue growing, which is great. So so yeah, a lot is going on. Let me try to like put it together. So we have practices in New Jersey and in New York. And in New York City, we have our surgical office, which is on 66 and Park Avenue, where we do surgeries and also see patient consultations. And then we have our medical spa on 74th and Park Avenue. And this is like the non-surgical paradise where we offer really everything when you're not ready for surgery yet. When you before surgery need some prep and after surgery need some maintenance. And then the third baby right now is our wellness center. It's about to open in a few weeks. It's right next to our spa, and our patients after facelift or rhinoplasty, they can go and check in. It's like a luxury hotel. They have a 24-hour nurse. They get prepped for the surgery, and after surgery, they go straight there. They really have everything they need. They have the hyperbaric oxygen therapy. They get the lymphatic drainage massages. They get the LED light therapy too, just for faster recovery. And all this came to life because we saw how patients really look for the complete care. Like being a great surgeon, and the surgery itself is super important. That's like the foundation, obviously. But the aftercare and recovery is so much more important than we thought. And especially in New York City, people can't really afford downtime and they don't want to do downtime. So we try to minimize that as good as possible.
That's so interesting because my talk was on branding, and it was all about how to move up the food chain, charge a lot more, and differentiate yourself from all the others. And the one of the biggest things you can do in today's world to differentiate is offer a VIP experience for the patient, and that means before, during, and after. And anybody who can help with rapid recovery, a cosmetic patient with a credit card is typically a busy person. And
Yeah.
anytime you can help them accelerate that recovery process, I love the hyperbaric chamber idea. Was that is that a big fan favorite? Because that's still very unusual. Most don't have that.
No, it's like people ask for it, and people
Mm,
are very knowledgeable about the values of it and the advantages. And they even approach us and say, "Do you have an hyperbaric chamber?" And we're like, "Yeah, we do." So that's for them a yes or no decision sometimes.
right. And back to the locations. Now, I know that you still go back to Germany to you're a plastic surgeon there. You're well known there. How are you juggling that along with the offices in New York? Dear Lord.
Yeah, so far it worked out. I just it's a little selfish. I love Germany, obviously. I grew up there and I love my network there. I love my friends, family, and my patients. And I never really wanted to let go of them. And the good thing about plastic surgery is you don't do like life-saving surgery. It's elective. You can kind of schedule your procedures and it works out so far. So the summers in New York City, we have a 3 months break for my children's school. So we usually use that time to go to Europe also because I wanted them to be exposed to Europe and Germany. And that time I used to see my patients in Germany. And then I usually go two more times during the winter and sometimes spring. Like 2 to 3 times a year I'm in Germany.
Do the kids speak German?
They do, yeah. They
Oh
need,
my God, that's
yeah.
fantastic. And then Dr. Kassir, isn't he from Iran? So do they speak another language as well?
Yeah, it's really crazy in our house. When we have dinner, there's like three different languages, and
Oh,
then you need to translate one language to the other person. So I strictly speak German to them because I said this is my best language. They have to understand German. Um, my husband is supposed to speak Farsi only with them, but he kind of like we switch sometimes to English, and then the English they learn from friends and at school.
oh yeah, they'll organically get a ton of
Yeah,
English, but how
yeah,
nice for them to know your languages as well.
yeah.
So
It
great.
is important. Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you differentiating yourself? Because number one, you're on Park Avenue. Number two, now you have plastic surgery, facial plastic surgery, spa, non-surgical treatments, and wellness. That's a big differentiator, but how do you keep all those balls moving. And how do you get a patient through all of those or just some of them? Do you have any kind of plan for cross promoting your services?
It really happens organically. And we didn't one day get up and say, now we're going to have a spa or now we're going to build a wellness center. We just organically saw the needs of patients coming in. And I think I read something about Steve Jobs, how he came up with the iPhone. And I always think about that. He was thinking like, you really have to think what for him his customer or the client needs. Don't think about what you want to market. Think about, put yourself into somebody else's shoes. What would you want? And when I read that, I was like, whoa, that is eye-opening. So I really tried to put myself into people's shoes and be like, what would I want if I finally say, now is the time, I'm going to do something for myself. I want a facelift, but I also don't want like to be like have to lock myself in at home for weeks. So then we're like, okay, step by step, how can you help to make that happen?
Well, I know for Steve Jobs, I believe he said, I I'm thinking what they need, they don't even know yet what they need. And that was a huge thing because on the one hand, you think, no, just give the patient what they need. He was such a forward thinker. He said, oh, no, no, they're going to want this as well. They just don't know it yet. Perfect example is the iPhone on reading, my Kindle on iPhone. I love reading, and I always went to bed with a book. And you couldn't get that book out of my hand if you tried. And I thought, who the heck is going to go to bed with their cell phone and read? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, my God, I like win for the most consecutive days of reading because now I can't imagine holding a book. It's so interesting. You
Uh,
know, he was so good. He knew what we were going to want before we even knew it.
yeah.
So
And
could,
it's something like you kind of have to train that thought of really, really coming back, coming out of your own way of thinking and be like, really put yourself into somebody else's head and think about it. It's like you have to practice that. It's not easy.
right? And you have to think. You have to think. That's the problem. You have to think. You
You have
can't
to,
be on automatic. You have to think. And that's why you have to get away from the office and think. And you've gotten really far away from the office. You're all over the place. So I think that actually is really helping you stay open-minded because you're in all different cultures. I just love travel. Oh my God, it's so great. But speaking about the patient demographics or the trends, are you noticing anything in particular that the patients want that they never wanted before? Or that now they're asking for, or the demographics? Are they getting younger, older? What do you feel is going on there?
yeah. I feel like the demographics definitely have changed. Like there's a much younger crowd who wants is open for surgery, and they're much more pickier. I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean like their tolerance for imperfection is much lower at a younger age. Like they used to be like more forgiving and be like, yeah, I'm still in my 30s. I'm gonna have my facelift when I'm 50. Now, like people picked up, they're like, oh, there's different steps I can already take not to get to that level where it's really surgery is the only solution. And that's another reason why non-surgical and surgical really can work together really well.
Hello there. Quick pause to ask you if you have gaps in your practice draining your time, profits, and peace of mind. If so, I can help you streamline, grow, and take the guesswork out of your practice. Book your practice growth strategy review at catherinemaley.com and let's turn those gaps into growth. Now, back to the podcast.
I'll tell you, there wasn't a lot of non-surgical when I first started. You either got collagen. We didn't even have fillers. We just had collagen and we had some Botox, and then you could get a microderm treatments, and then you jump to surgery. And
Yeah.
now, my Lord, you can spend a fortune before you ever get to surgery, if you have the inclination to want that, and if you've got the money. The problem is the younger people do they have the money or they don't have the money or that's the part I've always wondered about. Like they may
Yeah.
want it, they don't need it, like a 50-year-old needs it, but do they have the financial wherewithal to hang in there?
I mean, obviously, not everybody has that kind of money, but I think now they just want to spend that money. Maybe that it takes away from other things, but their priorities have shifted. They're like, this is important to me, and it's important to me to do something now for myself. Like they make it happen, I think. And it's not always easy, and I know that, but they, even if it's little things that they can do, they try to keep up with it. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. And obviously social media had a lot to do with that.
absolutely.
I do worry about that because I think if you're already stressing about your looks when you're 25, wait till you hit 35, 45, 55, 65. That's a lot of mindset going into vanity, you know? I do worry about that, but
I worry a lot about that,
yeah,
and I struggle with this as a person. I struggle with this as being a plastic surgeon and a mom and a woman, and overseeing all this. It's really something that I have to think about many times a week, and I think social media is a big one. And then I also see like we know that in the US, people were always very open to plastic surgery, but I also see the shift now in Germany. Like when I finished residency there, plastic surgery was big, but not so big and not so approachable for everybody and so normal. And now looking back, every time I fly there and come back, I see how it changes. And then there was a huge change after COVID. And now it's just mind blowing. Like really young women already approach me for facelifts. And that wasn't the case years ago. There was absolutely, facelift was like a stigma. Oh my God, a facelift,
yeah.
terrible, maybe in my 60s. And now they're like, oh yeah, facelift. When can I have it? What's my options? When are you back in Germany? Let's schedule it. I'm like, whoa, where did this come from? It's
Yeah.
interesting. It's a global thing. And I think social media plays a huge role in that.
For sure. Regarding your skincare line, that's a tough industry. It's so competitive. How did you go about that? Did you put that together here or back in Germany and how are you marketing that?
So we put it together here in the US, and we had it first only for our patients. And the beauty of it was you don't have it just in the shelves in a store, you have it at your office and you see your patients coming back. So you see what it actually does with your face and your skin when you use the right ingredients or ingredients that really work, active ingredients. So seeing this and getting this feedback made us be like, oh, okay, we should really make something out of it. So we expanded, and then with COVID, we were really very lucky because we had patients who couldn't come in, but they wanted to do something at home. So we had those, they're called Koji brightening pads. It's like a 30-day treatment you do at home, and that just helped many of us to feel okay while we didn't really feel okay. And so many patients were thankful. So I'm like, okay, we got to continue this. And I'm so happy we have this now to really offer it to our patients and also people who are not our patients. They really love the skincare, and it makes me feel like it's just another amazing add-on that I didn't expect. And since we're also selling a lot in Europe, we now started to produce in Germany as well.
Oh,
And I have to see how that goes because there's so many ingredients banned in Europe that are not banned in the US. And
interesting.
yeah, and we're very careful with what we put in our skincare because it's really our name, it's our brand. I always say it's your business card, what this product does to your skin, just like whatever you do on somebody's face surgically is your business card. So I'm just very excited now to see the skincare come out in Germany because it's going to be even, I don't say better, but even more careful with what we use to treat skin.
And then for fulfillment, are you doing that in-house or do you offshore that or how do you handle fulfillment? Because that's a big deal.
Yeah. So fulfillment happens in-house still. And but it's like you always hit a level and then you have to think about the next step. And we're just at this point right now that we're like, the in-house handling is getting really tricky. And it's a good problem to have, but it's a problem we have to address.
It's just one more thing to manage. And
Mhm.
and you are growth thinkers, you and your husband. So you're going to keep growing and growing, but that adds to the complexity of running a practice. And you actually have done a good job with that. You have a COO and a CFO, like you have a C-suite there, as we call it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Has that been super helpful to have the various? You have a wonderful social media person. I'm sure you have managers? How are you set up? Because that you have a big boat to float.
We do. It really wouldn't work without the team. It's like, I mean, we have, let me think, one, two, three, six offices. It would just not work. Like physically, it doesn't work without the team. And it doesn't work without people who understand the brand, the patient needs, the doctor's needs, everybody's. Like we just like I'm not every day, I can't every day be in every location. So I have to have people in every location who I can trust. And so does my husband. And then it's just like a work family. It really is. Like you spend more time at work than you spend at home. And those people know us very well and we know them very well. And it's ups and downs like everywhere, but also for our course that you mentioned, the New York facelift and rhinoplasty master course, like our practice, our team, like we had a full house at work, but we still together planned that course. And once the course was over, I was like, wow, how did we do that? So I'm just forever thankful that we have these people around us.
Let's talk about the course for a minute. It was so unusual in so many ways. One was the location and the venue you picked. It was in a gorgeous hotel, and it was, well, could you describe the venue? Because that was really interesting.
Yeah. So it was the Edition at Times Square, the Edition Hotel, and we had a smaller course last year. It was like the first course, and it all worked out for 30 people, but now we grew. I think we tripled the number, and we knew we needed bigger venue. And like we were like, oh, we don't want to have it at Times Square. It's so busy, and the hotels are all look the same, and we want something special. And then we said, okay, let's give it a try. Let's check out the Edition Hotel. And we walked in there, and we didn't even want to go there that day. I remember my husband and we never have time in the mornings, but we said, we're going to go to the office later. We're going to go together and see the hotel to just check mark it off our list. And we walked in there, we're like, okay. Like we
Mhm.
both liked it. He saw my eyes. He later said, I looked at you from the side and I saw your eyes and I knew you liked it. And then it was like when you go and check out a wedding menu.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so we loved it and we just thought it's unique, it's different for a surgical conference, but we knew the course is going to be different. So we're like, that's a good match. And I know because we have had so many international attendees, they value Times Square location much more than New Yorkers do. So we're like, let's do it. And it was just for us, it was I think a good pick.
Well, it was what is it? What is it? It's like a cabaret stage.
So
Like it was a stage,
yeah,
the usual typical hotel. It was very boutique-ish, very high.
yeah,
And when we met, they were at big tables with bar stools. Like the whole thing had a much different ambiance to it. So you didn't get into that tight suit kind of thinking. It was much more very international, very open, and it made everybody open and share because it was still an intimate group. Although
yeah.
I heard it grew 3 times. It was just so unusual. And then you did the live surgeries from the mega big
Hmm.
guys. You know, you had a real faculty, like
Yeah.
5-star group there. And they were doing live surgeries, and it was just amazing.
It was. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It just all came together. We had this vision and the hotel, like you said, it was not a typical conference
Mhm.
hotel. It's different. And they have like the Paradise Club, which is usually a nightclub, but there's like
Mhm.
these paintings on the wall and it's very artsy and interesting and this beautiful stage with a huge LED wall. And we just had this vision that this is plastic surgery next level, and this is about innovation, plastic surgery, and vision, and the future. And then it came together that this really A-line faculty, and we were talking about acting earlier. I always say it's like the A-list of Hollywood for like plastic surgery who came together. And one after another said they're going to come to the course. And we're like, wow, this is going to be great. And it worked out. It all worked out. And I'm so lucky and humbled. And just seeing all these people together and then the attendees and how everything was so, it was a great atmosphere. Everybody was sharing and educating each other and elevating each other. And it wasn't like tight and I don't know. I feel like everybody felt like they could share their thoughts honestly and share their issues and problems, like complications, like nothing to hide. We just wanted to help each other to become even better. And that was what I took away. And I was just blown away because some of these doctors I had never seen in person either. And they were like my idols and icons. And even from Germany back then, when I was a student, some of them I've heard of. And I'm like, oh my God, Dr. So-and-so is coming to the course now. So it was amazing.
How are you going to top it?
I don't know. We will. We'll see.
Yeah, because I would almost say, you know what? Stop there because it was so amazing.
Yeah.
Because now the expectations are going to be big, like what could you possibly do next year? But are you planning to do this annually?
Um, I don't want to overpromise because I don't know. We're definitely going to do more courses. And I think to your point, how you're going to top it, I think as long as you deliver the quality, you already top it. I think it's the quality thing, and you can't get greedy. Like, um, obviously, we have amazing companies who support us, but I don't think we want to go in this super industrial direction where it's like just business. It's really, I don't know, it really comes from our hearts and from our passion for plastic surgery. And I think that's the that's maybe where the magic is, that you really do what you love. And that's why we did it. We didn't have an agenda and say we want to have a course because we want to, I don't know, make money of it or so. Like that's important too, because you still, it's your time and effort, but it's definitely not the primary reason.
It really is planning a wedding. It's a big deal, takes a ton of, especially when you have faculty like that. I mean, you've got to plan that ahead of time. So I'll be watching for the next one. It was just remarkable. I just want to commend you on it. It was one of the most unusual conferences I've ever been to that was chock full of big thinkers. That's what
Yeah.
I love, being around people who think. And boy, I mean, you had top people there sharing their nuances. Like I was, some of the younger guys, I said, "Are you loving this? Like, I don't even know if you appreciate how great this is." 'Cause,
Yeah.
like you're learning from the
Yeah.
best. Ah, so
Yeah.
good, so
And the
incredible.
big thinkers, I think besides learning technical things, the big thinking and the inspiration you get from these people, their experience as surgeons, as businessmen, as people out there on social media, on TV, anywhere in the media, and you're like, oh my God, all this knowledge they share, it just puts you ahead so many years if you really take that in and appreciate that.
Absolutely. You mentioned social media. I see you're doing a good job on your own. That's another thing. When you work for a big practice like that, do you market within the practice? Do you market yourself? What's your theory on that? And how's it going with obviously Instagram, or do you use other channels as well?
So, for our practice, we do have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of that, obviously. Then I do have my personal work Instagram. So just as a side note, in Germany, before after pictures are not allowed. So therefore, on my Instagram, I never put any pictures up, like before afters, or barely, maybe about skin stuff. Um, so I kind of separate the practice, which we have, it's all surgical input, and then the personal is more about the practice, but more about the life behind it, or the lifestyle. And I'm not doing a good job like our office account because it's just really hard. But I think some people really want to follow people on Instagram. I want to kind of see a lot of behind the scenes, and I try to post when I can, but I think there's just so much more you could do with more time.
Right. Would you say you get new patients from it? And if so, are they the international crowd, the local? Who's attracted to you?
Oh yeah, I think international for sure. We get so many leads through Instagram, social media. Um, but also, like, it's also important. I know we all said, oh, websites aren't important anymore. And I'm sharing a really new, just updated information I got it from our last business meeting. Websites are important too. We just redid our website, and the leads we get from the website, and we're like, oh, we were just forgetting how important websites are too. Because at some point, if a patient is serious, they go on your website. And if that's not on point too, they might go somewhere else for a consultation. So as difficult and hard as it is, everything counts. Everything counts. The social media, your website, your front desk, your phone people, your spirit, your whole energy that you share on social media, everything really counts.
Social media has really, here's how I look at it. AI is definitely changing things, and it's getting a lot more difficult for anybody to find your website for lots of reasons, but you have to have a website, obviously. And if you do it correctly and you put the right content on there and SEO it like you're supposed to, you'll still be foundable. But boy, make sure you're on Instagram. I'm just surprised at some of the people who say, "Oh, I don't need any of that," and I think, oh no, people want to know who you are as a person. They definitely want to know who you are, and Instagram is what gives you that channel, that more freedom to do things. But before and after photos and reviews are still our number two top social
Yeah.
proof mechanisms. Do you have any secrets or tips for getting patients to approve here in America their photos and their reviews?
Um, we just ask them flat out. It's, I think if you really honestly like our patients have to sign, obviously if they want to release their pictures, if they're okay with that. And then there are different categories. Are you okay to show your pictures to other potential patients at the office or on social media or on our website? And some of them are first hesitant, which I can relate to, but then most of them really, and you wouldn't expect it when you're in the consultation room and you ask, like, yeah, okay, it's fine, it's okay. And it's interesting. I never expected that, especially coming from Germany. I never thought people would be so open to share their experience with plastic surgery. I mean, overall, I have to say rhinoplasty patients or younger patients are much more open to it because they are like, they love social media. They like to see themselves. They're familiar with it. The facelift, the typical facelift patients, that's a little trickier because they are usually a little bit older and they don't want to share all of it. But even there, I mean, if you approach them and ask them and say how important it is and how it really helps other patients who are like deciding what to do now to make the right decision, they do it. Even people you wouldn't expect.
Right. So the secret is, everybody, you ask
I ask.
and you get a lot better answer when the doctor asks. I'm just saying.
Yes, when the doctor asks, honestly, they kind of, it's hard for them to say no. And also, sometimes a no is completely understandable and natural. And sometimes you ask after the surgery, and you'll see this person changes sometimes. They're like, oh my God, they're so happy and blown away with their result. They're like, yes, I'm okay. And sometimes, before surgery, it's tense, you're scared. So maybe my advice is also ask after the procedure.
Absolutely. I would ask a few times just to
Yeah,
let them process that. And
yeah,
especially when they're totally excited about what they've had done, they want to do you a favor. They're more than happy to. Some
yeah,
won't, but a lot will. And I know the doctors are so out of their comfort zone asking for something like that, but that's exactly what makes you different. If you can get your mindset around you're helping patients and this helps your patients have a good result because other patients had a good result, if you could just get out of your own head and ask, that's the differentiator. Most surgeons say, I can't do this. I'm just going to let staff do it.
yeah.
Well, then don't complain that you don't have a lot of reviews or photos, you know?
And I have to admit, I had to learn that for myself, and I
Right.
learned that from my husband because I was like more like shy. I
Yeah.
still am, but I'm like, I can't ask that. I wouldn't feel comfortable being asked. And he's like, no, we'll ask them. And then I saw when he asked, and I'm like, they're never gonna say yes. And then they're like, yeah, sure. I'm like, what did he do that? So it's a learning process, but it's really worth asking and just trying. Yeah.
What I have learned in life is the more resistant I am to something like that, the more I have to do it because that's where the real money is. You're just holding yourself back, and you
Yeah.
just have to change your mindset on it. And Dr. Kassir, he is so good at this. He's just so normal. Plus, he's a nice, normal, nice person who is kind, who actually cares about the patients. I would totally do it for him. I mean, because tell he cares. So anyway, and I would do it for you too, because I could tell you care. Half the time it's when they have that feeling of, you didn't talk to me until the end here. And now all of a sudden you show up and you want a favor. I mean, that's not how we do it. We have a
Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful experience from beginning to end, and then they want to do you a favor. I guarantee it. We women love helping you help your practice if you would just ask. Just saying. Okay, so let's move on. We're almost at the end here. So tell us a crazy patient or staff story that you care to share.
I don't know one in particular, no, but I can tell you a story that is really true about when people ask me, do you see celebrity patients? And we do see many of them here in New York, and they come from everywhere. They come from the West Coast, they come internationally from everywhere. And I tell you, the real celebrities, they are different than you think. Like usually that you think when a patient calls and say, hi, I want an appointment, but I don't want anybody to be there when I arrive. And where's your back door? Then I know that's not a celebrity. The real celebrities come just straight to the main door. They don't have these like super crazy requests. That was my observation. Like, and I was always like, okay, if somebody calls with this attitude, that's not a real celebrity. And I was always right. The real celebrities walk through the main door, don't really have a big attitude, and it's pleasant. It can be really pleasant.
Oh, that's surprising. Yeah,
Mhm.
good to know. I do know on Park Avenue, a lot of the receptionists, they are to Google as they're talking to people, they're Googling them because it's not just celebrities, they're CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, they're billionaires, it's amazing what's going on. And you have no idea unless, so they're Googling at the same time. Yeah.
I really struggle to give you one particular story because every day is so exciting at our office. And I always share this with my friends also from overseas who practice. I say, every practice is interesting, and I love, as you know, traveling and seeing all the different parts of the world and the plastic surgery everywhere. But I've never seen such a variety of people like in New York. And I see, as you say, CEOs, but also at the spa, you might think it's only like super high-end people, but then you have just normal, nice people who come in for Botox, and I would have never expected that they even think about that. And I'm like, this is so humbling. Everybody's like, for their own, how do you say, for their own needs and pockets, they want to take care of themselves, and I respect that so much.
We have a saying here, vanity knows no bounds. It's so
That's right.
true. People, human beings, our ultimate goal is to be happy. And today it's cosmetic surgery. Tomorrow it's just a little Botox. You're dealing with humans who want to look good and feel great, and that's what you cater to. Yeah, and
Yeah,
they come in all shapes and sizes.
yeah.
So my last question is, tell us something we don't know about you. And just in case you don't, nobody knows this, but you actually have, with all this that you have going on, you have 2 children and you're expecting. So tell
Yes,
us more about
right.
that.
Yeah, number three is on the way. And so I have a 9-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son, and hopefully soon my third. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know how we balance it, but we just try. And because nothing we do is normal, I'm just used to it. Like people always ask me, like, how do you guys do this? I'm like, I don't know. I guess we just rush through our life. I wish it was different, but for us it doesn't feel like rushing through it because it's just so busy. There's always something going on. um you got to be a good mom, you got to be a good wife, you got to be a good daughter, doctor, everything. And I'm no, I'm not the only person who struggles with that sometimes, and I think it's like a it's across everywhere, and especially women today who want to make a career and have children, a family. It's a lot, but I really think it works if you find the right partner, if you really don't forget your goals, and if you know when you're home, you have to be 100% home. Like we don't have much time, but when we're home or when we have weekends with the kids, we want to completely focus on the kids. And that's, I think, what helps us to just work our way through this like constant feeling like you don't do enough on one end.
Yeah. Does it help that you work together, or is that a hindrance?
Both. Like
Okay. Like
it helps.
everything.
Yeah, it helps because we understand each other. Like I can relate when he tells me my husband says I'm late because a patient needs more time, or I'm behind with this surgery because we had to start late because of this and that. I understand it, but
Mm,
at the same time, I'm like, but you could have done this and that instead. And
mm,
still, I maybe sometimes I understand too much.
mm.
If it was sometimes like this role model where the husband does something and you don't really know what's happening and
Right.
tells you I'm late, maybe that then I would be more forgiving sometimes. But yeah, we keep each other, how do you say it, on your toes.
Mhm.
Like we're both like we're like, don't forget this, don't forget that. Like it's we're a good team, but we're also a good team. Like we're critical with each other. We're like, this has to be better. We can work on this. It's constant. It's really, it never ends. And for me, that's why real family time is so important for me. Like when I don't get my family time and to reset, I just get nervous. I'm like, I feel like I don't have the overview of everything, and I'm big like micromanager, so that gets tricky sometimes. I need my little oasis where I can recharge, and then I'm okay. And I have to have it all planned out, like I don't know. I just feel so much more German since I moved away from Germany.
Well, congratulations on all of that because you have a lot going on and you make it look easy. And I know it's not. I can't imagine what goes on behind the scenes, but it sure looks good. Your kids are adorable. And you're so cute as you're pregnant. I mean, you didn't miss a beat. Like, I mean, you're very pregnant and you're out there. You've got you were out there with everybody morning, noon, and night. And it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Good for you. If anyone wanted to get a hold of you, I know your Instagram is Dr. Sheila Kassir, and Kassir is Kassir. And you also have that website, insidebeautyspa.com. And any other way for them to get a hold of you?
Just our regular website, drkassir.com. But Instagram, website, just call our office. That's another thing when you get older. Now I'm in my 40s. I realize pick up the phone sometimes. It's so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What a concept. Yeah.
yeah, it's very traditional, but
Yeah.
helpful concept. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kassir. It is a pleasure talking with you. It was so nice to hang around with you in New York City. That was just a darn lovely meeting. I hope to see you again. And everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. If you would so kindly give me a review at Beauty and the Biz and subscribe, that'd be super helpful. And then if you've got any questions or feedback for me, you can leave them on my website at katherinemaley.com, or you can certainly DM me on Instagram at katherinemaley.mba. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again.
The fastest way to success is to model other successful surgeons who have what you want, but you can only see their results, not the path they took to get there. So you continue to jump from one thing to another, hoping to find something that will work for you too. But it rarely does. So try this shortcut instead. It's guaranteed to move you forward. I compiled my intellectual property to grow cosmetic revenues, everything I've gleaned over the years, into one playbook of the most successful practices and what they do to win. Go to cosmeticpracticevault.com and let's grow your cosmetic revenues.